clicker here to start because I've got some slides for you all. Okay, how is everybody today? Good? So I was having drinks last night with Liz, and I thought, maybe I'll go out tomorrow, last night. And I had to wait so long to get an elevator to go upstairs because so many of you were coming down from some reception with drinks in your hands. I thought that there's no way you would be here today on time because you would be going out so much. So thank you for having me. I will tell you the last time I was here in Barcelona was a couple years ago. And I travel quite a bit, and I enjoy it very much. And one of my goals with my job is to take my children with me and to have them have a very well-stamped passport, because I think it's very important to get out and see the world, especially as Americans. And the last time I was here, I brought my son, and he is 13 now. And it was a couple years ago, and I will tell you, he's a huge football fan, and especially Barca. So I was doing a session with Merck, actually, and we were in Madrid, and then we flew down here. And we did all the touristy things, right? We went to Las Ramblas, Sagrada Familia. We went to Camp Nou, which he loved, loved, loved. And I thought, oh gosh, I felt so good as a mother, bringing my son, and what an experience that he had. And we came back to New York, which is where we live. And a couple weeks later, I went to pick up my son from school, and I saw one of his teachers. And she said, I heard you had such a great trip to Barcelona. And I said, I did. And she said, do you know what your son, his name is Jack, he said his favorite thing to do was? And I thought he would say Camp Nou. And she said, no. My mom let me go out to dinner at midnight. And he thought that was the most amazing thing in the world. So that's when he said I was coming here. He was so looking forward to me going out to dinner at midnight last night. So thank you for having me. I'm told you are a crowd that is very intense, that is very type A, that is very driven, and likes to have fun. Do you think that's fair? Okay, do you think that's fair? Okay, good. Well, I had about 8 hours on planes yesterday, and I put together 700 PowerPoint slides for you so we could have some fun. Does that sound good? So my goal today is to talk about change and innovation. And the first time I got to start working with Accenture a few years ago, I had a book out called Kill the Company. And that really caught the eye of Camille with her peers and Pierre as well. And I did a few sessions with him and some leaders on his team. And the idea around Kill the Company was interesting to them because it was very provocative, right? Kill the company, kill the firm. And since then, I've since written another book called Why Simple Wins. And this cover is not even out yet. It will come out in October. And Liz Tinkham is actually in the book for some of the work that she's done with Microsoft, and we're going to talk about that later. But the idea around simplicity is important because when my first book came out a couple years ago, I will tell you my own company was going through a big transformation. So I have 17 people in New York, and my company is called Future Think. And we go around and we train executives like you how to think about the future and how to think about change. And right when my first book came out, it was very interesting. A lot of my trainers were coming back from sessions, and they were really frustrated, and they wanted to quit. And I wanted to find out why this was. And the reason why, they said, was all the times that we were going out to teach change to all these executives, they were having such a hard time because when we got there, all the executives were refusing to let them do their job, right? The very people that were bringing us in to teach change were the ones that were refusing or pushing back on us when we got there, right? Teach change, but not too much. Draw a picture of the future, but only within really specific lines, which makes no sense, right? Do you ever experience that kind of pushback with your own clients? Yes, it's very frustrating. So I wanted to know why this was so hard for my clients to accept change. Why is it so hard for them to want to create the space for change and innovation to happen? And I started asking the groups that I would speak in front of a very simple question to figure out why. And here was the question. What do you spend your day doing? Right? Just think about that in your head. What do you spend your day doing? Now, just to give you some context, I will probably speak to 100,000 people a year. I usually go to about 30 countries. And what surprised me when I asked this question, what do you spend your day doing? It wasn't the uniqueness of the answers that I got, but it was the absolute consistency of them. So regardless of the country or the culture of the people or the regulated or non-regulated industries, when I asked, what do you spend your day doing, they all answered exactly the same way. Meetings and emails. That was it. And then it was reports, policies, conference. It didn't get better. And it was interesting to me because I thought, you know, most people, when they wake up in the morning, they want to do meaningful work, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning, looks at the inbox on their computer, and says, oh, I'm so popular, look at all these emails, right? Or I'm so excited for this day, I have so many meetings, I don't know how I'm gonna get to all of them. No, nobody does that. So how do we actually get rid of the things that aren't working, these meetings and emails, so we can create the space for the more meaningful work to happen? Because that's why people wanna work at Accenture, and that's why clients wanna hire you. I think we can do it, and we can do it in really simple ways, but we have to get in the habit of simplicity first. We have to get in the habit of less being better than more. And we have to get in the habit of subtraction versus addition. And that's what I want to talk about today. Sound good? Okay. So let's start off first by talking about change and how we need to think about change in new ways. Then I want to talk about what holds you back from doing it, because it's probably different than what you think. And then I want to talk about simple ways that you can start to make change happen in your own organization. So let's start out with change. How many people here, by show of hands, think that there will be more change in the next 10 years than there has been in the last 10 years? Okay, I think that's almost every hand. How many people think there'll be less change in the next 10 years than the last 10 years? Okay. It's interesting, I usually get 50-50, but I think you're a more progressive audience than most. I believe there will be more change. So keeping on top of it is very important. And I want to know if you are good at identifying change. How many people here, by show of hands, think they're good at identifying change? You can see change happening. Okay. I'm going to play a game with you. And this is a futurist game. My background is that I'm a futurist, which is a real job. It's a real job. You can get your master's in science or bachelor's in science at many different universities around the world. One of the biggest is University of Houston in Clear Lake, a lot of oil and energy companies. Anybody here in the oil and energy practice? Okay. Obviously, they employ a lot of futurists. Same with pharmaceuticals. A lot of regulated industries do that have long time horizons. Futurists help people look at possible, probable, and preferable scenarios of the future. Possible, probable, preferable. Those aren't always linked, by the way. It could be possible, but it's not preferable. Keeping your antenna up to change is important so you can see this change and figure out how you want to deal with it. So one of the games we play is called In the News. And what we do to see if people are good with change is we give them headlines from the future. And we see if they know if they're true or not. So I'm going to give you some headlines from the future, and you have to tell me whether you think they're true or not. I'll read the headline to you, and if you think the headline is true, you're going to stand up out of your seat and wave your hands like this. If you think it's false, you're going to stay seated. I want you to cross your arms and just look really angry. Do you think you can do it? Okay. Put down your things. Push your chairs back a little bit if you need to. And here we go. I'm going to read the headline, and then I'll tell you when you can stand up or stay seated. Okay, here we go. Here's the first headline. Fitbit, fitness tracker, has partnered with Netflix. They're doing a very small pilot just outside of London. There are only 50 people involved, but they are creating retail experiences, entertainment experiences based on your behavior. Here's how it works. These 50 people are outfitted with special Fitbits. So it's not just your locomotor activity, and it's not just your sleep activity, but now they are capturing feelings and behavior. So these people that have these trackers, when they get in front of, it's their computer or their television, and they are wearing this tracker, they can now select movies on Netflix based on how they're feeling at the moment. If you think it's true, stand up. Give me the hands. Come on. Oh my gosh. People sitting down. Stay up because you look ridiculous, please. Now, people that are seated, look at these guys standing because these are my visionaries right here, guys, right? These are my innovators that are standing up. These people are wrong, so sit down. Okay, that's right. That's not true. It's not true, but why did you stand up? It's possible, right? It's probable, and of course these things are starting to happen. They're preferable. But the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is these are the types of things that people think, oh, they're possible, they're probable, that's cool, entertainment experiences. That's not what this is about, right? We think about wearables in terms of consumers. That's not the new frontier. Anybody knows anything about redoing Google Glass or some of the other wearables knows that it's not about B2C, it's B2B. So the new frontier in terms of wearables is going to be up not with nurse practitioners, with doctors or patients, but it's going to be the guy on the oil rig who actually is doing safety checks, whether it's a wearable, whatever it might be, and can actually use this to prove that they've done them. Or it's going to be that scientist in the lab that works at a chemical company or is working at a pharmaceutical company and is saying, you know what, now we can actually develop compounds around the world together in real time using our wearables. Now we can speed things to market and actually look afterwards and say, how could we have done this better? And it will capture that data and we can use it for training in other ways. But why do you care about this? This isn't about being more effective or efficient or coming up with new things. This is going to transform culture. And it's going to be good and it's going to be bad. So when you think about this for Accenture or with your clients, what happens with technology and behavior? Internally, we think, oh, it's going to make us more effective. But the people that work for you think, oh my God, if I don't work right, I'm going to get fired, right? It completely transforms how they think and how they work. Okay, let's do another one. The people that stood up probably feel pretty bad, and I want you to feel better about yourselves. Here's our next one. Forget about 3D printing. I want you to think about 4D printing. Here's the deal. The US Army and Harvard are exploring ways to use self-assembling objects that they can create things like bridges that just spring into shape. Right? Self-assembling objects. They can create structures and bridges that just spring into shape out of nowhere. If you think it's true, stand up, just like this. Okay, you think I can't do 2 falses in a row. That's what you think this is, right? All right, let's take a look. Is it true? It's absolutely true. Okay, how many people know a lot about 4D printing here? No? Okay, now you will. So here's 4D printing. 4D printing is really smart objects, right? It's programmable objects, things that do things once they self-assemble. It's like 3D things with one more layer on top. But what's cool about them is this. You think about 3D printing in ways that are just cool 3D pens. 4D printing, and this is a little demo I'm going to show you here, is taking objects, simple like simple polymers, that are programmed to bend in different ways when they interact with water or fire or air. In this instance, this is a cube that's immersed into water that's been programmed to fold, right, the minute it comes in contact. And this only takes a matter of a minute. And then it can come in contact with another cube, and another cube, and another cube, and it starts to do things on its own. Why do you care about this? Why do you care? Well, here's something cool. Right now, we already have, with one group just outside of China, WinSun has already created a 3D printed 5-story building in less than a day. Right? We know this. These things are already happening, these structures. That's 3D printed. What if something is 4D printed? What does that mean? What it means is your tennis shoe or your running shoe or whatever it is no longer that kind of a shoe. What it is something like this. Material sciences are going to let people create an object or a shoe that does everything. You'll need one shoe because when this comes into contact very soon with things like turf or grass, it will spring cleats. When it gets onto some kind of floor or concrete or whatever it's programmed to do, it will reinforce around its ankle because it knows you're about to play basketball, and it goes on and on and on, right? So what is a shoe? What does it need to do? And go a little further. What if you have concrete that is self-healing? Now, this is where you get into things like infrastructure that's really sexy, right? We don't have to worry about spending billions and billions of dollars fixing roads. They'll fix themselves, right? We have biologics that go into them. Or let's take it even one step further. Then we have pipes, right? These are things that are already happening, pipes that will not clog, they won't burst, they won't freeze, they won't break. They'll automatically heal and pump themselves, right? Worried about infrastructure where there's earthquakes? Don't worry about it, it'll fix itself. What does this mean? What it means is really cool things. Think about the future of cities, guys. The future of cities is that they are completely replicable, they are non-permanent, they are completely adaptive, right? Don't worry about those old buildings that you're going to have to tear down. They'll tear down themselves. They're non-permanent anyway, right? Everything is responsive. That's cool. So when you start to think about 4D and what it means, right, materials and production, what does this mean for us? Right? How will that affect what is a shoe, what is a building, what is a city? That's where that goes. All right, I'm going to do one more headline. This is your last chance if you've gotten 2 of them wrong, okay? Here we go, one more, and this is fun. BMW has partnered with the University of Southern California, and they've made a car with 300 sensors. The sole purpose of this car is to make you healthier. If you think it's true, stand up right now and give me hands. Come on, stand up. Oh, 50-50. People are feeling a little bad about themselves. They're staying down. All right, you think it's true? Let's see. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. How many people have heard about this car before? No? Okay, you have heard about it. All right. What do you think about it? It's a Met, okay. Well, so this is the car. This is Nigel. It's a Mini, and it has 300 sensors, and here's how it works. When you first sit in the car, it will tell you how much weight you have lost or gained since the last time that you drove it. Right? Yeah, this is a terrible car. It's a terrible car. When you put your hands on the steering wheels, we have basic diagnostics that let us understand if our heart rate goes up more when we pull into our parking space at work versus our garage at home. Or other things it will do, the venting system. It will let you know if you are going into a more polluted area, the GPS will reroute you to a healthier route. And it goes on and it goes on and on. And we do a lot of work in pharmaceuticals. And what's really interesting when we talk with executives, anybody here working in pharmaceuticals or healthcare? Okay. So the future with pharmaceuticals, right, we want to get to beyond the pill, right? What's beyond the pill? But so much of their business still is the pill, right? So it's about adherence. How can we get people to adhere more to their medications, right? Take more of. Well, to do that, we have to have the medications in the places where they spend their time. Let's see, where do people spend their time? In transit. Well, most people, are they in public transport or private? Well, they spend a lot of time in their cars. What if we got pharmaceuticals into the cars so they could be healthier while they drive? That'll never, until it does. And then in 5 years, your BMW is brought to you by Pfizer, right? Imagine how that happens. So here's what I want you to think about with all these trends, right? It's important for you as leaders, not just to know the trend, but what does it mean? What's the implication of it? Because it's often not what you think. So this is for cars, right? This is a terrible slide, I'm so sorry. But this is something called an implications wheel. And what it means is you start with a point and you extrapolate it and see what the implications is. You know what the implication of a driverless car is? No more need for parking structures, no more need for parking garages, no more need for insurance. There won't be any more drunk driving. You don't care if your grandpa's driving the car because he won't be driving the car. We won't need mechanics anymore because the cars will be self-healing, and it goes and it goes and it goes. Right? Self-driving cars equals decimation of many types of industries and jobs. And that's how an implication wheel takes you there. So what do you want to think about with this? What you want to think about is with trends, the future is not who you are. The future is who you're becoming. And that's a really important distinction, right? The future is not who you are. You know who you are as a company. But do you know who you're going to be in 10 years? So think about this. New business models and partnerships. What would you be doing in 10 years that you're not doing today? That's a really good one to think about over cocktails. What would Accenture be doing 10 years from now that it absolutely doesn't do today? Or think about it a different way. If you couldn't do any of the things that you do right now, what would you be doing instead? What would you have to do to make money? So how does change happen? I want to talk about that. How does change happen? Here's how it happens. This is how futurists look at change. And the thing to think about with change is how it starts and how it ends are never the same thing, ever. Ever. Where a trend starts and where it goes are never the same thing. So when a trend starts down here, it's emerging. Right? No one knows about it. There aren't many Google hits on it yet. It's emerging. There's no term for it. And then all of a sudden it's framed. There's a term like GMO or social media. People are investing in it. They're talking about it at cocktail parties, and you act like you know what it is, even if you don't, right? There's task forces being formed to explore it, right? And then all of a sudden, it's on the cover of a magazine. There are many companies that have gone public. You're trying to get their business. You're consulting for these companies. It's a big deal. There's money to be made, right? People are following the stock prices. And then all of a sudden, it's resolved. You move way up to here, and this is where there are lobbyists, right? There are laws. There are people that are going to jail. That's what's happening there, right? Illegal things are going on. We're gaming the system. Now, how does it happen to you? How do you experience change every day? Let me tell you how. So here's an example. Back in 2004, and it's hard to see this down here, you got your magazine, your alumni magazine if you went to Harvard, and you saw that there was this thing, Face Mash. By the end of the year, there were 1 million people on it. Oh my gosh, there's this dating site. It's becoming very social. It's not really social media yet. And you went into your boss and said, we've got to check this out. This is unbelievable. And the boss said, I love this idea, but let's not look at it right now. We have other things to do. Right? Get back to work. And then in 2007, there's these bloggers that are talking about it. You're hearing about it at cocktail parties. The #1 company right now on social media is MySpace. How many people are now checking their MySpace account today? How many people checked it? None of you? Right? There's a platform, things are happening, companies are starting to think about going public. And then all of a sudden, cover of a magazine, right? There is definitely an industry here. This is when I talk to millennials, I said, this is the moment when your mom tries to friend you on Facebook, right? It's over. It's over now. And then here's where it goes. This is about the high court in your country talking about not social media, not even data. It's about unstructured data. This is about your thoughts and your feelings that now go into the cloud, and we start to talk about how much are your memories worth. Right? These are the big conversations right now. How much are your memories worth? Right? Are mine more valuable than yours? Who gets them when you die? That's where this is going. It has nothing to do with social media at all. So why do you care? Right? This is why you care. This is where change happens, and you can influence it with you and your clients. Right down here. This is where you're taking orders. So what you want to think about is, are you actually helping your part of the company and your clients using guardrails or boundaries, or are you waiting too long and using handcuffs? This is where you can't operate, and this is where you can. That's where change happens. Right? So why don't we, or why can't we better enact change? Why is it so hard for us to do it? Here's why, and I'm going to tell you a story. I think it has to do with complexity. And the result of that, right, the implication is complacency. The people that work for you that say, you know what, I'm not going to fight anymore. I can't change it, so I'm not going to worry about it. This is how we've always done it. Let's just do it this way. That's what happens with complexity, and that's why change is so hard to do. And it was a few years ago, I'll tell you this story. I had to go down with you know this company, I'm sure that you consult for them, one of the largest manufacturing companies in the world. And we had to go down to Raleigh, North Carolina, and they wanted us to do a session with them on the future of manufacturing. The future of manufacturing 2030. That's a pretty good time horizon, 2030. And they said, stretch our imagination. We're doing an offsite. Tell us how change happens. Picture the future. And so I went down with a team of 5 of my futurists, and we prepared this day to stretch their imagination with their top 50 people. And we sat in this room like this, and we prepared all these great exercises to blow their mind. I kicked it off, And then my team was going to follow on and do more exercises with the group. In about 30 minutes from when I kicked it off, I realized as I was talking, nobody cared. They hated me, they were bored, they didn't want to be there, and I really was going down in flames. It was probably the worst professional experience I've ever had in my life. I wanted to get off the stage and just cry. And so I thought, what am I going to do? You know, I'm 30 minutes in, we're supposed to be here all day, they hate this. So I called a break, and I went into the bathroom to do one of those regroups, you know, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Oh my God, oh my God. And I came back out, and I found one of the senior executives there. You know, there were 3 guys that were the top. And I said, what's going on? You know, what's happening? And he looked at me like I was crazy. He said, what do you mean? And I said, I don't think this is working. He said, oh, don't worry about that. He said, it's not that we don't want to change. We just really don't believe we can affect it. And I thought, oh my God, you know, this is really just an exercise. I'm just filling an agenda for an hour and a half. That's really what this is. And so I came back and I thought, well, I still have to fill the time. What am I going to do? So I reorganized everybody into groups by their function or their part of the business, right? So procurement or legal or rocketry was here, and they all were in their little similar groups, you know, 4 to 5 people per table. And I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try something totally different. And they played along. I mean, really, they could care less. They didn't really care. And I said, here's what we're going to do. I want you to figure out who your #1 competitor is. So it would be different for legal versus rocketry. They figured out who they envied the most, who they wished they could be, where they wished they could work, who their #1 competitor was, they wished that they could kill. And they argued about it for a few minutes, and they figured it out. Everyone had a different competitor. And I said, now I want you to pretend that you were that competitor, and I want you to put yourselves out of business. I want you to kill your company. They were so excited. You know, like lighters are going off. It's like a concert. They're so excited. So I said, okay, kill your company. What does that mean? I want you to figure out in 30 minutes all the things that you're going to attack about the company. How is the pricing weak? Where does the sales team suck? How can you not close deals better? What things do you spend time on that don't matter? What groups do you work with that just drag you down? And so they started writing for 30 minutes, and after 30 minutes, they wanted another 30 minutes. Suddenly, we had spent all day killing the company. And what was really cool about it was how many things they could find, right, that weren't working. And at the end of the day, how many of those things that they found were strengths they wanted to turn back on their competition. So why am I telling you this? Why kill the company? This is a really great example of people could not think about the future and add on more before they could actually get rid of and attack what wasn't working. So this was really interesting when I had done this session with Pierre. What really turned the executives on that I worked with your company about, they said it's really cool if you can give people permission to get rid of the things that aren't working to create space for those that are. So if you did this exercise with your group and you told them to kill your whatever part you are within the company, what do you think they would say? Would they be able to come up with ideas? Could you kill your part of the firm? Right? It's something to think about in terms of change. Now, here's what happens in terms of not being able to kill the company, right? Here's where the complexity takes root. And I'm curious if this happens in your group or at your clients. I think there's a few things happening. What's causing the complexity? The first thing is we have this mentality that more is better, right? We have to do more. We say that we value less, but actually we do not. We value more, right? And a great example of this is a great anecdote about a locksmith who was so good at his job. Anytime someone got locked out, they would call him, and he could fix that lock in under a minute. And people were so happy when he would get that door unlocked. But then they would be very angry when they had to pay him. Because they said, well, how much could that possibly be worth? You did it so quickly, right? He said, no, you're paying for the years of my expertise. And they said, yeah, but it didn't take you much time. It shouldn't be worth that much. So he decided next time he goes on jobs, he's going to start to tinker around a little bit more, and then people would feel like it was worth it, right? More is better. Why? We do this subconsciously. The second thing is I think within most our organizations, we spend all our time now managing, not leading. That's a very big difference, right? We manage things, not lead them. In fact, I think most people in this room are not leading, but you are being professional skeptics. And there's a very big difference between being a leader and being bold and being the person who's always skeptical and says why something can't happen. And then the third thing is, I think we have an addiction to doing over thinking. In fact, in most companies, thinking is a daring act. Right? Within most of your clients and parts of your company, thinking is a daring act. Right? Think about it. When you go into somebody's office and you see them just sitting there, looking out the window, and you say, hey, Stephen, what are you doing? And Stephen says, oh, I'm just thinking. What do you want to say to him? Get to work, right? Get back to work. And I love this. I tell this anecdote a lot, but it was so true. I sit on a board with scientists at 3M. And I have to say they're one of my favorite companies because they're just, the geeks are my peeps. They're just great people, right? They're making tomorrow today. They're very conservative. They're very humble. They're very good people that are just doing incredible things, and they don't even think that they are. And I was at a meeting with them, and I like a lot of the neuroscientists. I really like behavioral science. And I was talking with one of them at cocktails, and I said, I had this idea for my book, my original book, and I said, I think thinking is such a daring act in companies, right? It's a real risk to do it. And this guy who had been very introverted, right? He'd been very introverted, suddenly became very animated with me. And he said, oh, I couldn't agree more. Thinking is so daring these days. And he said, you know, the brain is the most amazing organ that we have. It starts working from the very moment that you wake up in the morning, and it doesn't stop until the very second that you set foot into your office. So let me ask you something. Think about this for a moment, right? Thinking is a daring act. When and where do you do your best thinking? When and where do you do your very best thinking? Shout it out to me. Where? Running. Yep. Shower. Where else? In the plane. Me too. Definitely plane. Where else? Shower, running, plane. Mountain. Yeah. When you're walking, climbing. Okay. Sleeping. Yeah. During sleep, falling asleep or just sleeping? When, either. Well, for some, it's interesting. Sleeping, I either get falling asleep, sleeping, or waking up. There's different phases for people. So what's interesting? What are the commonalities of what people just said? Usually alone. It's quiet. You're doing something you usually aren't thinking about, like if it's running or driving a car. It's not in the office. Right? No one said meetings, doing emails. Right? This is part of the problem. Where we think, it's interesting about innovation and change. We always talk about innovation being a collaborative effort. I will tell you I don't agree. I don't. I think the best ideas happen when you're alone. You get that spark when you're wandering, when you're thinking, that aha moment, typically when you're alone. But you build the best ideas when you're together. So if you're a leader, you have to think about two things. One, how are you going to give people thinking time, that alone time, that quiet time, so they can come up with those ideas that you need? Right? And then the second thing is, everyone thinks differently. So how are you going to allow them the way that they think to happen at work? Right? I need quiet. Someone that I work with needs throbbing trance music in his headphones to be able to think. How do we create those environments for both people? Now, here's something interesting. If you think things have been harder the environment to think has become more complex, it's true, and here's why. In a recent study, we found out in the last 15 years, the amount of policies, procedures, governing structures has increased anywhere between 50% and 350%. Right? That's probably not surprising to you. But here's what's more surprising to you. Here's how people are spending their time. Here's how they're spending their time. In the average organization, the average employee, now it's different by level, but on average, 45% of their time in meetings, 23% doing email, I would have thought this was higher, by the way. But by the way, this was only during work hours. And my thought is a lot of the email, right, gets done before and after work hours when you're so excited about how popular you are with your email. 18% are doing unproductive work. Do you know what unproductive work was when you delved down into it? The time spent going in between meetings. That was the unproductive work. It was time when you were just grabbing time for email, walking in between meetings, grabbing a phone call. It was getting things done, not being productive. And then that leaves 14% of the time to get real work done. Isn't that surprising? Right? When you think about 14% of the time. So we're spending our time on mundane, not on meaningful. How do we change it, right? How do we change that? So here's what I want to think about. We talk about simplifying. Why should we do it? Who cares? Why should we simplify? Somebody tell me. Why do we want to do it? Say it again, I can't hear you. Okay, increase to 14%. What else? No reason to simplify?
Better life.
Say it again.
Better life.
Better life. True. Any other reasons?
Employee satisfaction.
Employee satisfaction. Very good. What else?
Focus on important things.
Focus on important things, right? Meaningful work. So I think, anyone else? Think about the future. I think there are some very intuitive things, but you don't think about it, you feel it. So let me articulate it. Here's the first thing for customers or clients in your example. Look at this. So they're willing to pay anywhere between a 6% and it's estimated up to 15% price premium if you simplify things for them. A price premium for it. The second thing is they're 70% more likely to recommend you. Oh, they're easy to do business with. And then they outperformed non-people on these simplification index that Siegel and Gale did by 214%. So they outperform complex companies financially by 200+%. That's a pretty good reason to simplify, right? They want to do, you make it easy for them. They're tired, it's complex, make it simple. Here's the other reason why, as a boss, for your employees. It's an efficiency exercise, but it's also a cultural exercise. They are 30% more likely to want to stay at work, right? To not leave if they have an environment where they're doing meaningful things. Right? And they're going to be more effective. And the last thing is, and to me this is where simplification becomes a moral issue. And I do think it's a moral issue, by the way. Why do we think it's okay, right, to waste each other's time? Why do we think that's okay? Right? Why is it okay for me to sit up here if I went overtime today? Why is that okay? It's not okay. Right? We need to respect each other's time. How do we start to do that? So let's talk about simplification quickly. How do you define simplicity? Right? Let's simplify. What does that mean? What do you think? Who wants to give me a definition of simplicity? Say that again? Getting rid of things. What else? Do things in the most efficient manner. Right? This is typically where people start. They think of things in terms of streamlining, efficiency, and getting rid of. It is a subtraction process. Let me give you an interesting definition of it. And I'm just going to walk you through it, and then I'd like you to sit with it for a little bit. 4 things in simplicity. 4. Something is simple if it is as minimal as possible. As possible. Not less, not more. You can make things too simple, by the way, right? It's so simple that now I got to re-explain it because you left things out. Right? It's as minimal as possible. It's understandable, it's clear as possible. No business jargon, no acronyms. You're not trying to sound smart. Oops, let me go back. It's repeatable as possible. It's not custom, it's efficient, you can replicate it over and over, it can scale, right? And then finally, it's accessible. One of the things that's interesting about simplicity is how people like to hold things, right, to control it and not make it accessible to you, right? So it's as accessible as possible. Most people, and this is when I ask the definition, it starts here. It's as minimal as possible, right? I got rid of things. That's not simple. It also has to be understandable, repeatable, as possible, and accessible. Now, why do I say as possible? Right? there are legal reasons why some things should not be accessible to others, right? There are certain reasons why they might not need to be repeatable. So that's why this is where you're smart and your leaders, it's as possible. Okay? Now, you hold yourselves back from being simplified in a lot of ways, and I'm going to show you why. Do you have a piece of paper in front of you that has 4 boxes on it? Piece of paper with 4 boxes? Raise your hand if you need one of these. Anybody need one? No? Okay. You need one, please. Okay. We're going to do a little exercise. We're going to do a little exercise. On the sheet of paper, you have 4 boxes. Sorry, it's a long slide, so these look like rectangles, but you have 4 squares. And then in 3 of them, we've colored in 3 squares. We are going to do a little spatial exercise now, 1 quadrant at a time. And I'll walk you through it, and let's see how well you do. I want to start looking at this top right-hand box. And here's what you're going to do. You are going to divide this square, this white square on the top, not the blue part, but the white part. I want you to divide it into 3 equal parts. Take the white space, 3 equal parts. Same shape and size. Yeah. All right, it's a smart group, so I'm assuming that you got this, right? You guys feel good about yourselves right now? Let's go to the next one. 2 equal parts. Same size and same shape. 2 equal parts. Okay. Feeling very smart right now? Okay. Now, let's go down to this one here. This is the lower left. 4 equal parts. Same size and shape. When you think you have it, raise your hand for me, please. Size and shape. Camille's not allowed to do this because she's seen it before. No. That's what everyone's going to do, though. I've got a couple. I'll give you a couple minutes. No. They're not equal size. They're the same shape, but they're not equal size. If you drew the diagonal line and thought you got 4 triangles, that is not correct. It is not equal size. All right, I'll give you a hint. The answer is right in front of you. It's right in front of you. Isn't that an annoying hint, right? Okay. Here we go. There it is. Do you see that? All right, we've got 3, 3, 3, 3, 4 equal size and shape. Good? All right, let's go for it. Let's go for one more. You can do this. This box here, 7 equal parts. If you didn't have coffee this morning, I'm so sorry. Seven. Are you ready? It's really hard, I know. You can also do it vertical. There's 2 ways to do it. So here's a great example, right? Oh, God, I love it. You are the rising stars of the organization, right? The smartest people. And this is a great example of what makes you a great leader can sometimes make you very bad with change, right? Because you are very effective at knowing how to do specific things. And so you use that construct every single time to solve that problem. Well, 4 was hard, so 7's going to be harder. We better really brace ourselves for this challenge, right? So how do you constantly undo that thinking? I'm gonna push it in terms of time. I want to do one more thing with everybody. So this is a great example of where complexity happens a couple different ways. You just experienced organizational complexity. This is where we start in organizations. We create the monster that we become a slave to. Right? We often, it's unintentional that we do this. We want to solve a problem. So we create things, we put policies in place and reports and procedures, and we add on top of it, et cetera, until we create this beast that then all of a sudden we have to adhere to. And we see organizational complexity like this. But that's not the stuff that annoys you every day. This is the stuff that annoys you, individual complexity. Meetings, reports, policy, the things that we do to manage organizational complexity. And when you ask people what drives them nuts at work, it's individual, not organizational. So it starts with what you just did. You make things more complex than they need to be. But individual, as leaders, this is where the complexity starts to happen, and you create it every day. And I'll tell you why. Everybody stand up for me, please. And I already know Morris is going to give me the hook, but I can't right now. Okay. I'd like you to actually find a partner not at your pod. So find a partner not at the area that you're sitting with. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. I feel bad. I'm like right up here with all of you. Okay. Here we go. Does anyone need a partner? Does anyone a single? There we go. Let's get together there. Now, you're going to need to spread out because I need you to face your partner arm's length apart. Okay. Now, between the two of you, one of you needs to be the apple and one needs to be the orange. I'll give you a couple minutes to decide. Okay, does anyone need a little more time on that? Okay, apples, do me a favor. I need you to make a fist and stick it straight out at your partner, right? It's a salute, not a punch. Okay, oranges, apples, do me a favor. Excuse me. These are apples. Oranges, put your palm right up against the apple. Okay. Now on the count of 3, I'm going to have you push. Okay? On the count, just relax, just relax. On the count of 3, right? Apples, you're going to push into the orange. No, hold on. On the count of 3. Apples, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, push. Oh, come on. Push harder. Hard as you can. Hard. Okay, stop. Very good. Apples, nice job. What were your instructions? Apples, what did I tell you to do? Good. Oranges, what did I tell you to do? Nothing. What did you do? You did exactly what I wanted you to do. It's perfect. You resisted. Why am I telling you this? This is where natural human behavior can be your excuse for how you actually lead in organizations. This is where you go into what's called your brain stem, right? You go right down from your neocortex, which is where all the good problem solving happens, into your limbic system, that's emotions, right into the brain stem, which is fight or flight. This is where, when you are confronted with change, your natural reaction, right, as a reptilian brain, that's the brain stem, is to resist. And so the metaphor for this is in your organization or at your client, when you try to propose something, you propose something new, right? And the newer it is, the more change that you push at somebody, the more people resist it, right? Bring me an idea. Ooh, give me a write-up, right? No, I think this is really going to change the business. I need to see 10 years of financials. Like, it just keeps going, and the more you resist it. So what you could have done instead is you can absorb it, right? There were some people I saw, you're going to get a promotion after this, congratulations, that resisted the change or channeled the energy in the way that they could. And that's where you get up out of the brainstem and into problem-solving mode. So remember, it's natural to resist, but as leaders, we have to remember, how can we actually absorb it and accept it? Thank your partner and let's sit down. Thank you. So just in the interest of time, this is what I just did. I just changed the slide, right? Here's the real driver of individual complexity: risk, fear, power, and control. When you are dealing with people that create complexity, this is what's creating it. Risk aversion, especially if it's in a regulated industry. Fear, especially if there's a lot of change, scale, growth, new markets, acquisitions. And then there's human behaviors for power. That's why things aren't accessible. I want to control it. You can't see it. And then control. We are rewarded the more we control and the more we manage. More, more, more. That is what drives complexity. Right? So how are we going to get rid of it? I'm going to show you some statements. I'm going to give you one tip, and then I have to go. I'm going to show you 15 statements, and I just want you to write down on a piece of paper how many you can answer yes to. Right? I don't have a formal worksheet for you. I'm not going to give you homework. But these are the things, believe it or not, at every level of the organization that cause complexity more than others, and they seem very junior, simple things. I want you to answer honestly as a leader. Do you do these things? Here's the first one. I often send emails that are longer than one paragraph or require time to read. And this is where you start to go, but you don't understand, my stuff is complex, it's really important, blah, blah, blah. Emails that I send usually include more than 3 CCs or BCCs. I know you guys don't BCC anybody, but if you did. I expect email replies from my staff within 24 hours or the next business day, no matter what, on every one of my communications, because it's important. Number 4, I often use business jargon or buzzwords in my written and spoken communication. I know you're just trying to be efficient. That's why you use buzzwords. Number 5, I require my team members to involve me in the decisions that they make. It's important that you know. Number 6, my decisions are always a group effort. Kind of the opposite. You like to include everybody in the decision. Number 7, I'll read it because it's harder to read in the back, I know. I've assigned a project without a clear objective, if you're honest, or a clear project lead, maybe multiple leads, maybe it's a group effort, in the last 6 months. It's a task force, it's a pet project. You guys will figure it out. Number 8, I'll read, especially for those in the back. I expect employees to follow formal process steps no matter what. This is an especially good one for people in a regulated industry, no matter what. Next ones. I or my team, we add onto project or product development work. We don't really eliminate things. We're always adding value. Number 10, I must sign off on all expenses, communications, or contracts in my group. That's what the regulations say. I hold multiple recurring meetings with my team each week. Multiple means more than one. I've held meetings without agendas. My presentations are lengthy, and they have really good in-depth information. I don't often provide feedback or actions on reports or presentations that I assign. I have my teams give them, and they're very good at it, but I'm busy. I don't have time to give them the feedback. They know they're good. And the last one, I require each of my direct reports, at some point, they need to create multiple recurring reports for me. So people that work for you in your business are responsible for multiple recurring reports back to you, whether it's monthly, quarterly, annually. Now, see how many times you answered yes, just privately. I'm not going to ask you. What do you think the number is, the score, that would say you are creating complexity? What do you think? How many does it take before you're creating complexity? One. And here's why. And I'm very hard-nosed about this, because what if your team has to do 50 reports a month? It doesn't matter if all the other ones are fine. They're consumed by that one thing, right? Some things may be less or more to each of the people in the room. But the point is, you need to decide how much of that is meaningless work. Because the answer is, within your company, if you get the work right, you get the culture right. That's it. Simplicity drives culture. If you can have meaningful work, you get the work right, you get the culture right, people will stay. So here's what these were, by the way. Of the things that you answered, these were things around communications, decision-making, operations. The next ones were around operations again, meetings, and reports and presentations. Those individual things. Here's what I want you to think about as we wrap up here. How could you change one of those things when you leave? What one thing could you simplify on that list? Just a quick shout out for me of these 15 statements. Which one do you think is probably the biggest problem within Accenture? Meetings? Presentations? Reports? Multiple sign-offs and decision-making? What else? Let me actually do a show of hands, because I'll tell you the categories. How many people think that communications and emails are one of the biggest problems? Okay. How about decision-making? Okay, I heard Liz say that one. Operations, processes. Yeah, it's funny, different hands are going up for different things, which is very telling. What about meetings? Very interesting. If I asked this question at your clients, I bet all the hands would go up. It's very different. What about reports and presentations? Okay, from what I see, it runs the gamut here. There are lots of different things. All right, so here's what I want us to do leaving here. How can we make simplicity a habit, right? How can we actually make it something that sticks? And I'm going to tell you one quick thing that you can do. One quick thing. And it's something that actually Liz did with her team, and she's going to talk about it a little bit more in her presentation. I'd like you to leave here, and I want you to do one simple technique. Oops, I'm going to go back here. And it's called Kill a Stupid Rule. Kill a Stupid Rule. This is one of the favorite ones that we do with our clients. And here's how it works. You go back with your team and you say this. Oops. If we could kill or change any 2 rules at work, right, that are just creating complexity, if we could kill any 2 rules, what would they be? And you're going to give your team 15 minutes. And you know what? What they're going to come up with is lots of rules and lots of things that aren't rules. Meetings, reports, policies, procedures. You are going to get a list of things that you had no idea were bothering them. None. And Liz can tell you a little bit more when she did this with her team. It is amazing and surprising. And put your arm around when you do this exercise with your team, because the rules that they're going to come up with that they hate are probably the rules that you created. Right? I do this with my team every year. We do that. We kill our company and then we kill stupid rules. And every year, when they actually come up with the rules that they want to get rid of, they're always the rules I created, and I'm always very annoyed when they say them. Because I think, well, those are really good rules. I made them. Of course, they must be good. There's a reason. And it starts a really great dialogue. So what's interesting about this is when you ask people for the rules, ask them what would they get rid of. And the second thing you can ask them, especially if they're the senior leaders on your team, ask them why haven't they gotten rid of them on their own. Right? What's holding them back from actually making that change? Because often people feel like they're looking to you for permission, and that's why they're not doing it. How many people here feel that they could do a kill a stupid rule with their team? Could you? Okay. I'd love it if you try it. And I'd love it if you will email me and tell me how it worked. Would you do that? Yeah? Okay. So let me end with something here. I'm going to just give you this. This is my email address. It's lbodell@futurethink. If you do a Kill a Stupid Rule, I want to hear about it. Right? If you have a problem when you do it, I want to hear about it and I want to help you. But really what I want to leave you with, and I'm going to hand it over to Liz here, is just remember for all of you here is that change is a choice. And the reality is you do not have to do it. You don't, right? But are you going to be the one that's actually being with the handcuffs, right? The one that's actually waiting for the change to happen, or the one that's influencing it? And I think you want to be the ones that influence it. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.